Hello, everyone, and welcome to No Off Season presented by Mass Mutual. I'm Zena.
I'm Sabreena Merchant.
And I'm Ben Pickman.
And today on the show, a first for Caitlin Clark. And no, she's not making history out on the court. She's making history for herself as the Indiana star guard is out for at least 2 weeks with a quad strain. We got to talk about what the Fever are going to look like or have looked like in her absence. And we're going to get into that and the impact it's going to have on that team moving forward. Plus, our rookie ladder, of course, after last year, climbing to new heights. The rookies have come in and they're making a name for themselves. We're going to look at some standout rookies, making some noise around the W, as well as wrap things up with where you should set your screens this weekend. But first, a reminder. Hit that follow button wherever you're listening. Podcast, YouTube, subscribe, do your job. Let other people know that we're doing a great job. Follow us. Thank you. All right, let's get into it. Caitlin Clark's injury. First off, first and foremost, most important thing, not the tickets, not the viewership, not anything else that everyone's talking about. First and foremost, Caitlin Clark, we wish you a speedy recovery. This is new for Caitlin. This is a person that literally did not miss a college game. I cannot imagine how she must be feeling right now, experiencing this injury and, of course, having to sit idly by as her team tries to go on without her. We hope to see her back on the court soon, and this is the first time in her WNBA career that she has missed a regular season game or will be missing regular season games due to injury. But, Ben, you saw the Fever in training camp. You were at their home opener. You recently wrote and you asked the question, what will the Fever look like without Caitlin Clark? Well, I know many of us saw that Indiana Mystics game. Deep breath. They look slow, Ben. They just look slow. So tell us, what are some of the impacts that we might see, we can expect in the next couple of weeks surrounding Caitlin's injury?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, Zena, Caitlin is going to miss at least the next 2 weeks with a quad strain. It's a different injury, we should say, than the quad injury that kept her out of Indiana's first preseason game against the Washington Mystics. That's per Stephanie White, the Indiana Fever head coach. And so the effects, you know, we have started to see them after Wednesday night's game against the Mystics, which again, the Mystics defeated the Fever and the Fever dropped to 2-3 with that loss. You mentioned the big one. I think pace is the first thing that, like, I think both Sabreena and I kind of had our eye on, because Stephanie White made the decision to move Sydney Colson into the starting lineup, basically because she, in Steph White's words, is a really good communicator. She's a really good defender, and they trusted Sydney Colson to kind of orchestrate and get them into offense. But in effect, what they did was also cut back on the pace that the Indiana Fever were going to play. Like, for me, when I spotlighted what I thought the Fever might look like without Clark, I focused mostly on Kelsey Mitchell because, like, we saw it in some of the stretches in which Caitlin Clark wasn't on the floor earlier in the season, and we should say she had missed only or sat out for only 20 minutes prior to Wednesday night's loss to the Mystics. Kelsey Mitchell was one of the lead ball handlers, and, like, when Kelsey was on the floor, they still play with a lot of pace. I mean, she, like, no guard gets to the rim, basically, in the WNBA as much as she did. She had the most shots within 5 feet of any guard heading into Wednesday night's action. Like, she's someone who can really get downhill. And so you thought they were still going to be able to play with pace. But I think one of the early impressions that we both had was, like, they played with less pace. And you look at it, the Indiana Fever, normally they average 12.3 fast break points per game. They had 0 against the Washington Mystics. Right. Another stat to you know, reflects the difference in how they look, and this gets into the Aaliyah Boston factor, and I assume we're going to touch on that too. 47 paint points heading into the Wednesday night game with the Mystics, 32 against Washington for Indiana. So Aaliyah Boston a key, pace is a key, Kelsey Mitchell's a key. There's a lot of ways we can go from the Caitlin Clark effect with her absence.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit about the effect it's going to have on the league in general, but Sabreena, I'm going to continue the Indiana conversation first. Because, yes, Kelsey Mitchell was definitely a factor. You saw that Sydney Colson's definitely more of a distribution type of point guard. You know, they were running a lot of half-court sets. They were doing a lot of on-ball screens. It was a lot more of trotting type of actions in the half court. And the main thing I was looking at was Aaliyah Boston, as Ben mentioned. Only 5 touches. And yes, 4 or 5 from the floor, which is great. But when you're looking at what Aaliyah's been providing this year, it's been much more volume and a lot more output. I love your breakdowns with the guard and big play. This is something that I think is an even bigger factor than Kelsey Mitchell. What were your thoughts on their half court sets?
Yeah, I think, Ben alluded to it first. It's harder to get the bigs the ball in the half court than it is in transition, and nobody throws a hit-ahead pass like Caitlin Clark. Like, the outlets were not there. And Aaliyah Boston, Natasha Howard, they run the floor really well. So that's one aspect of their touches that's getting limited because you're just not getting them the ball early, right? And then you think about in the half court, well, Aaliyah Boston, like, you think about her at South Carolina as a rookie, she was more of a post-up player. Like 40% of her possessions as a rookie came in post-ups. And then you switch to last season, and well, you're not going to give her 40% of post-ups when you have Caitlin Clark on the team. That just doesn't make any sense. So it all came out of the two-player action, right? Like high screens, Aaliyah Boston operating out of the short roll. What she does with that, like, she can do so many things. She can put the ball on the floor. She can spray it back out, like re-screen, whatever. But when you don't have a point guard who is going to be calling for, pick and rolls, because like Sydney Colson, I'm not even sure I'd really call her a point guard offensively. Like, I understand floor general, like she organizes like people, but like I don't think she's really running offense, so to speak, like how you would expect a point guard to. So she's not going to be doing that. Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston don't really run pick and roll. Like that, a huge chunk of their offense is just focused on that. And they forgot, kind of, it seemed like to me, that to like get Aaliyah Boston involved in other ways. And it's not like other people can't run screen rolls. They just weren't. So it was strange to see how limited Aaliyah Boston's like activity was in the half court. Like they were literally, I could count on my hand the number of times like she was even involved in handoffs and stuff during the first half. So it was just, you have this incredibly versatile big who admittedly is at her best when she's playing with Caitlin Clark, but that doesn't mean she can only play with Caitlin Clark, right? There's a lot of other things that she's capable of doing. And it was just strange to see them like consistently go away from that. There was just so much isolation in the half court relative to, what we're used to seeing with all the movement that Caitlin and everybody else creates. And it's like a knockdown effect, right? Like when you have Caitlin, that allows Lexi Hull to move off the ball. That allows Kelsey Mitchell to move off the ball. And when you put the ball in their hands, it just changes their role in the offense, and it sort of makes everything else a little bit more stagnant too. So admittedly, like it's not rocket science to see you take out like an excellent offensive player like Caitlin Clark and everything changes, but it was just so dramatic, like how much everything was changing.
Well, to that point, Sabreena, like Washington was not really afraid of Sydney Colson breaking them down off the dribble, right? Like already so far around the league, the short roll between Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, that connection that they have is one of the best connections and most repeatable connections in the entire league. Like Clark has 19 assists to Aaliyah Boston this season. And so you plug Sydney Colson in that spot, like Washington was not afraid of Colson snaking around that screen, finding Boston on a short roll. She wasn't like, and they're not, they're going under those screens where they were on Wednesday night, kind of daring Sydney Colson to shoot. And that is why so often you get this like much more stagnant offensive set. To me, the thing I was most curious about was why Stephanie White against Washington didn't elect to play the lineup of Boston, Cunningham, Bonner, Mitchell, and Hull more. Because that was a lineup that I think provides them with a little bit more dynamism. It puts the ball in Kelsey Mitchell's hands, and your secondary kind of point guard, so to speak, or floor general can become DeWanna Bonner. And we saw that a little bit on Wednesday night. That was actually their best or most efficient offensive lineup of the game. I pulled up the synergy data. They only had 6 offensive possessions together, which is a really, really small sample, but they had more than 2 points per possession. And you could see in some of those possessions, it was Kelsey Mitchell orchestrating offense, and some of it was DeWanna Bonner. And I would just rather have, if you're going to have a table setter, a floor general kind of setting you up, I guess I would rather have DeWanna Bonner be that person than Sydney Colson. And you still, have some shooting of Cunningham and Hull. We also haven't seen the Indiana Fever, like they don't shoot corner threes at all. That was one big thing that Stephanie White said might have to change going forward. That's a big question that I have. Like, Mitchell can get downhill and kick. We're still kind of waiting to see some of that action. So, to me, I want to see more Boston, Cunningham, Bonner, Mitchell, and Hull as the 5. And I think less Colson just kind of plugging in for Clark going forward.
Well, what I really liked was, Sophie Cunningham and Kelsey Mitchell both alluded to like being punched early and needing to go back and practice and show up with more energy in practice to figure out how to play without the gravity of Caitlin Clark, because that's exactly what you're talking about, Sabreena. You look at Sydney Colson, I believe she went 2 for 7 from the floor. That is someone that you're not expecting to be your main scorer, to be your main producer for buckets. And if you don't have that threat even, right? Because even if Caitlin Clark goes 2 for 17, you're still scared of that third, right? Of that 3 for 18. Like, you're still scared of that. And so not having that fear of that threat of Clark on the floor absolutely impacts everything out on the floor. But I'm sure that they're going to be watching film and they're going to be able to see the same things that Ben just pointed out in terms of like what was most productive in terms of offense. So let's shift the conversation quickly to what's going on outside of the Indiana Fever.
We talk defense real quick, actually.
Oh, sure. We could definitely talk defense. My bad. Yeah, let's go.
Well, because you'd think Caitlin Clark, for all of her gifts, we wouldn't call her necessarily a stopper by any means. So what I was looking for is, at the very least, if Indiana is going to struggle offensively, which, it's established that is going to happen, then if you put Sydney Colson in for Caitlin Clark, then their defense should be better. But that wasn't even the case. Like, that's what really is disappointing to me about this current Fever performance is they added so much defensive talent during the offseason, right? Like Sophie Cunningham, physical defender, DeWanna Bonner, all defense type player, Natasha Howard, former defensive player of the year, right? And I'm looking at a team that's just like still making mistakes, like not knowing who's covering who, like what coverage are we playing here? Like what does this personnel demand? Like, why are we fouling so freaking much? Like where's the transition defense? Is anybody getting matched up? And if you're getting Sydney Colson in the lineup and it's not improving your defense, then I just don't see the point of really playing her. Like, put pseudo ball handlers in there,
Yeah, but I've seen a few games already with Indiana where I'm not impressed with their defense yet. And I think it's to your point, Sabreena, of like, there is still a level of connectivity that hasn't happened on the defensive end. There have been a lot of mistakes. And I think that that's why I didn't put a lot of chalk into their defense. And they're one of those teams where it's like, they score enough that you don't think so much about their ability to stop folks. But I've not, like, I think about the Indiana-Chicago game and I'm like, Chicago will stop themselves. I don't necessarily think that Indiana was the team that was like really putting on the clamps on Chicago, right? So I think that's why there's not much to write home about there. But you're right. If you add someone like a Sydney Colson that was brought off the bench in Las Vegas for the purpose of slowing folks down, you've got a Defensive Player of the Year, Natasha Howard. You think Shakira Austin doesn't go for 13 off the bench. You think that Kiki doesn't go, 16 as a starter inside, but they were having their way. But where was it? In transition. And where does that go off of? Bad shots going long and Washington just running with it. I think they only ended up with 10 fast break points, but they were significant fast break points.
We should say, I mean, one, let's give Washington some credit here. I mean, we're going to talk about them later in the show. Yep. They continue to compete and they are very fun and exciting to watch. So we should throw that in as we talk about how the Fever looked on Wednesday night. The other thing, though, if we're going to play a little bit more of the like glass half full perspective is, we're having this discussion now at the end of May. The Fever coaching staff is obviously having this discussion, similar discussions at the end of May. Better to have conversations about what lineups work and don't work and, what rotations we like to lean on and how different combinations work. Better to have that in the, the first part of the season than in the second half and then in the postseason. Mm-hmm. And that's really been Stephanie White's outlook on it, or at least public outlook in media availability she's given since Caitlin Clark was announced with this injury earlier this week. She's talked about it as an opportunity and an opportunity for growth and an opportunity to just figure out, like, learn more about the Fever because, she is hoping that despite how everything looks right now, despite whatever impact there might be on standings or record or anything like that in the short term and whatever those effects might be, that like suddenly come September and if you're a Fever fan, October, which is, again, what they hope for, like, you suddenly know the combinations that work in different situations. If Clark goes out, we want to play this group, or in this situation, this is a better matchup. So, better to sort it all out now, I guess, than have some of these looming questions, months down the line.
Absolutely. I mean, this is what Indiana has to do if they want to compete with the big dogs. Figure out their depth, because it can't just be stars. It can't just be Caitlin and Kelsey and Aaliyah. They got to figure out how do you utilize all the moves that you made in the offseason. Something else that the entire league is trying to figure out, though, is what do we do when the person that is drawing a lot of attention and drawing a lot of dollars to our league is sitting on the sideline in street clothes. We have seen ticket prices drop. We've seen the impact that Caitlin Clark not playing has had on it. Personally, of my opinion, that's making me look at some of y'all sideways, because Caitlin Clark is not the only basketball player that is in these games. So if that's the only reason you were going, how much do you really love women's basketball? But that's just my opinion. Let's get back to it. Ben, I know you guys, both you and Sabreena, have some thoughts around this. I'll start with you. What have you been seeing in terms of the impact on the WNBA of Caitlin Clark's absence, and what does this say about, how teams are going to react against this absence?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is more interesting as what is the impact on the Fever than what is the impact on the WNBA, right?
I agree. I agree.
I'm just interested to see, you suddenly take someone like Caitlin Clark out of the equation of going to a game. What is an Indiana Fever game's TV rating? What is their attendance like at home and on the road? What are merchandise sales like if people, aren't necessarily going? Do those things shrink? Or social media impressions? Those are all the changes I'm most curious about. League-wide, I mean, there's plenty of games that don't involve Caitlin Clark every single night on the WNBA calendar.
Not last night.
Right, not last night,
Right.
for sure, but that's an Indiana Fever game. But, on a given night, there's plenty of games that go on that don't involve her. So I'm a little less interested on the, macro perspective of you have Caitlin Clark out for, 2 weeks again, or at least 2 weeks. Again, this is not the season also, we should say. Again, this is, potential. It seems like on the surface, a short-term injury. I'm a little less interested as, how are WNBA TV ratings drastically going to shift? They're going to be down because you have a best player who's a driver sitting, but that's unsurprising. We all watch a lot of NBA, have experience covering the NBA. I mean, that league deals with all the time stars sitting out in high-profile games, stars going out on 1 week, 2 week hiatuses. LeBron has taken literal vacations during the season before, for all intents and purposes, right?
No,
yeah,
literally,
when stars sit, this is what happens. Things start to go down. That's not a surprising trend. We shouldn't be surprised to have it be applied in this context too.
This is a team that has 41 of its 44 games on national television, and there's a reason why those games are on national television. So I don't know that the WNBA is in position to flex them out of those windows if Caitlin is unavailable. We see this happen on the NBA side, 3 weeks in advance. If a team is really struggling, they knock them off the national TV spot and put somebody else in there. And I look at, let's say Caitlin's injury extends a little bit longer, and we're talking June 14th when they're supposed to play New York on CBS. That's the kind of game where you really want Caitlin available, because it is a national TV showcase. We saw how much fun the first go round was between the Liberty and the Fever. And I don't really know what else is happening that Saturday that they could move there, but I imagine it's a lot more challenging than just putting somebody else in that slot on that Saturday afternoon. So, the WNBA does have a lot of eggs in the Clark basket, right? They are promoting her more than any other player in the WNBA. That is obvious. But I don't think it's a death sentence, obviously, for the league that they don't have her for 2-3 weeks. And I think, this is kind of a fun time for people who did tune into the Indiana Fever to be oh, this is what Kelsey Mitchell's capable of. This is what Aaliyah Boston's capable of. And then as you're watching the Fever, you see other teams, and to me, Caitlin was always the entry point for fans, right? And so she introduces you to all of these other things about the WNBA, and hopefully that is still happening, even if the ratings might take a slight dip during this little hiatus.
Yeah, no, I think that everything you're saying is absolutely accurate. I think about the fact that the NBA playoffs, for example, this year had the highest viewership ratings in the first weekend. And you wonder why? Because Steph Curry played in them in the last 2 years, right? Didn't play in 2024, played in 2023 into the play-in and didn't make it. And in the last 2 years, the numbers drastically dipped. Does that mean that the NBA is Steph Curry? No, but for some reason, the narrative is that, the WNBA is Caitlin Clark because the numbers have dipped. Of course, Of course, it's natural. People want to see their favorite players. People want to see certain players. It happens, but that doesn't mean that the product all of a sudden becomes defunct, that there's no such thing as basketball, women's basketball anymore, just because Caitlin Clark is now on the floor. So I appreciate you guys both providing that perspective. I really want to know is, rather than just looking at the Indiana Fever, rather than looking at these ticket prices, I'm looking at the Indiana Fever within the standings. That is what is going to be impacted, especially when you consider some of the games that are about to happen are those must-win games, right? That will kind of help you clean things up at the end of the year. This isn't going against Minnesota and New York, et cetera. However, they are going to be going up against some of those teams. So what do these upcoming games that Caitlin is going to miss, how could they potentially impact Indiana standings?
So 2 of their next 3 games are against Connecticut and Chicago, teams that, as of this recording, are winless, although I think one of them might have a win by the time this podcast comes out. So we'll, hold off on that. But those are games that the Fever just have to win, right? And you look at them, they're currently sitting in 9th place in WNBA standings. A reminder, 9th place does not even make the playoffs. And this is a team that we were talking about competing for home court advantage, right? Early in the year. But you look at a team like Atlanta or Seattle or Phoenix, and this is an opportunity for you to collect some wins and sort of build a little bit of a cushion so that playoff seeding becomes a real factor down the stretch, right? Like this is the kind of thing that could legitimately affect Indiana's ability to have a home court position in the first round versus not if the injury lingers and they don't do well in her absence. And that's meaningful, right? Like this, obviously they changed the WNBA playoff format so that the first round is home, away, home. So it's not like last season when Indiana played 2 games in Connecticut and never got to play a game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. So even if you make the playoffs, there will be a home game. But I do think that the standings are something to like potentially keep an eye on here because we expected Indiana to just collect a lot of wins at this early stage of the season. And as Washington has shown, it's a lot harder to do when you're playing a team without Caitlin Clark.
Okay, well then, that being said, Ben, let's close this out. What's the ceiling for the Fever in the absence of Caitlin?
I mean, I think they'll still be favored to win the next 3 games that they play against Connecticut, Chicago, and Washington. I think, then and right after that, they play New York and Atlanta, 2 teams they have lost to with Caitlin on the schedule so far this year. Like, I think then it's a different story if we're talking about this injury going on to its, second and third week. That's also where I start to actually think about the schedule conversation a little more. I think all the points Sabreena makes are super fair. And we have seen with the Fever, like they've talked about the importance of having home court in the preseason. They recognize that as, meaningful come September. So yeah, these are games you don't want to drop, but big picture, like overall ceiling, assuming this injury remains as a 2 to 3 week injury and doesn't linger, like the Fever certainly could still be a team to make the WNBA. Like, I don't think their big picture ceiling changes at all, assuming she returns and reacclimates the way people expect.
Sabreena, you with that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's more what you were talking about earlier, Zena, that like, I just don't think they've looked as good as we would hope they would have looked with Caitlin, right? Like defensively and, just a couple schematic things. And this delays the process of them getting to that point because they don't have Caitlin in the lineup. So I'm a little, I would say, less optimistic on the Fever as a whole, not just because Caitlin's out, but because of other things. But I still believe that like championship ceiling is possible, just take a lot longer for them to reach that level of play.
Okay. Well, we don't know when Caitlin Clark is expected to be back out on the court. We just know that 2-week timeline is what Indiana has provided. But we know, just as being humans and former athletes, that 2-week timeline also requires a ramp up to get back on the court. And so could be a while before we're seeing tip-top Caitlin shape. But we'll see. Don't want to speculate. Overall, I appreciate the breakdown and the insight. And again, as we mentioned before, Caitlin, wishing you a speedy recovery back to the court. Now, it's time to talk rookies. All right, so I already told y'all my half-baked take a few weeks ago. It's still looking pretty good in the oven. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's still holding strong. It's not cooked all the way through, but a few weeks ago I said that I think that the Rookie of the Year might be lurking somewhere in the nation's capital. instead of in Dallas. Now, right after that, Paige Beckers comes out and I think had a double-double at 18 points or something like that. And I was like, okay, I get it. Paige didn't like what I was cooking up in the kitchen. But still, I like that there's competition. The rookies have been looking real good, looking a lot, just very fun all across the league. And so, Sabreena, I'm gonna throw it to you first. Do you think Paige Beckers has been the best rookie so far this season?
I'm still reeling from you calling us all former athletes, Zena. I did not deserve to be in that designation. But setting that aside, Paige Beckers, I would say, has not been the best rookie thus far through the 2025 season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you want me to say who I think has been, or should we save that for later?
No. I want to get your thoughts first. No, and then Ben, I wanted to ask you too.
I agree with Sabreena on this take.
Okay. Break it down, guys. Now you can break it down because I'm happy we're on the same page. Now, do I think it is Paige's fault? No, I do think that she's got to be incorporated a little bit better in Dallas. And Dallas is still figuring some things out, very similar to Indiana. Every team that has all these brand new faces around them has to figure out how to incorporate and fold them in. But Paige Beckers did get her first WNBA win. And I will say, when she is poised and unrattled and not sped up, and she's locked in, she looks like she's been in the league for a very long time. That said, what have you liked, Ben, in her play so far, especially in that first win? What have you liked, and what are some of the things that you hope that she can continue to improve upon?
Yeah, I mean, I think the take, at least for me, is less about a reflection of Paige, who I think has looked really, really good so far in a situation that, as you said, Zena, is still very much a work in progress. Like, we're taping this on Thursday ahead of Dallas playing Chicago, on Thursday night. For all we know, she could explode for a huge game in that contest, and it would not be surprising at all. I mean, she's averaging like nearly 15 points a game, 6.5 assists, shooting over 40%. Like, you mentioned the double-double. I think it is still very much a work in progress with how she is fitting next to Arike Gumawale, and that was something that Sabreena talked about last week, just the kind of lack of immediate synergy in terms of them kind of playing off of each other. I also think she's a little bit hampered because, Dallas's front court is one of the worst front courts, frankly, in the league in terms of experience, quality of player, and they're very much still trying to figure out that rotation. And so, she doesn't have an immediate, pick and roll partner like Aaliyah Boston that, Caitlin Clark does in Indiana to kind of help her, in these short roll scenarios, in high ball screen situations. Like, Paige is playing with Maisha Hines-Allen, who, is a very solid WNBA player, but not someone who's going to make multiple all-star teams throughout her career. Tierra McCowan, her role is still getting figured out. They're trying to figure out, do we play Maddie Siegrist more at the 4? There's a lot still going on in Dallas. And so, yeah, I think the context really matters here. And she's played pretty well, but it's just some other rookies, I think, have had a bunch of standout performances and are very much elevating and, creating some surprises across the league. That's where I think, Paige has not run away with it so far.
I agree. Sabreena, you're looking at Paige. You're saying she's not the best rookie. And I think we can all agree it's the context in which she's playing that has not allowed her game to flourish in the way that we've seen some of these other rookies get the opportunity to just shine. But who has shown for you? Who is standing out? I know who's standing out for me, but who's standing out for you?
I mean, to be fair, I'm going to say that Paige is probably second on my list right now. It's not like,
exactly.
she's fallen far behind the pack or anything.
Yeah,
If I were voting for Rookie of the Year and had to give a top 3, which, let's be clear here, when you do vote for Rookie of the Year in WNBA, it is not a top 3. It's just a one name. So Paige would not be on my ballot right now, but that's a little misleading. Right now, I think the best rookie in the league has been Sonia Citron in Washington. And part of it is she's just making more shots than Paige is. We're so used to Paige being this hyper efficient player, and the 3-ball is just not hitting right now for her. She's 42% from the field, 31% from 3. I assume those numbers are going to normalize for Paige, and everything will look a lot better when they do. But you look at Citron, she's hitting 40% of her threes, and 51% of her field goals, and she's helping a Washington team that's been competitive in all 6 of the games they've played thus far this season. Like, they could be 0-6, they could be 6-0, but they're 3-3 right now. A lot better, I think, than anybody thought they were going to be at this point of the season. She also has to defend a lot of really big matchups. They put her on Kelsey Mitchell for stretches against, Indiana, and Kelsey Mitchell admittedly had a really bad shooting night. Like, she said she couldn't throw a rock in the ocean. I think part of it is also, like, Sonia Citron's a good defender, and we've seen that
she's
across
long.
the board. In some impressive matchups, she's been really good in transition. I think just her two-way ability and the fact that she's making shots, again, 6 games into the season, it's early, but so far I would say that Sonia Citron is the 2025 Rookie of the Year.
Absolutely. I mean, not only is she doing everything you're talking about, the defense, being able to score, the efficiency, because right now she's got a 50-40-90 season, y'all. Like, she's literally playing at 50-40-90 from the floor, which is amazing. But she's also distributing. She's also rebounding. She's in the plus column in terms of assist to turnover ratio. Like, she's doing it all right now in Washington. And it just makes me wonder, what would have looked like had Georgia not gotten hurt out in DC. I mean, they look so much fun. For me, my favorite rookie right now is Kiki Iriafen. I mean, talk about somebody that has come in and is fearless going at people. I think, I was talking to someone on Blue Sky, like we're all homies on Blue Sky, and I don't know about X, but Blue Sky for sure. But I'm, talking about how Kiki, they had mentioned that they weren't sure that Kiki would have been as skilled coming into the league. And for me, it was less about skill. I knew she was capable of skill. I saw that footwork in Stanford, let alone at USC, but it's the way, the physicality in which she is showing up on the floor that has been really impressive for me, on top of her skill. The double doubles, the fact that both Sonia and Kiki have been in double figures in every game they've played this season so far. It's been unbelievably impressive. Ben, I got to ask you, who's your favorite rookie in the group?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Sabreena here about Sonia Citron. And I would just say, like, other than maybe Caitlin Clark, there isn't a name that I have heard more in conversations that I've had around the league with people than Sonia Citron. Now, part of that is also because Washington, acquired basically the rights to draft her via trade, right? They acquired the number 3 pick in this year's draft by sending Ariel Atkins to the Chicago Sky, and Washington also acquired swap rights for Chicago's 2027 first-round pick and Chicago's second-round pick this year. And so, like, because of, like, Chicago getting off to a slow start and Citron looking the way that she did, like, there's just a buzz in so many conversations people have
it's loud
about how good she has been. I mean, Sabreena threw out some of these numbers. Like, she's averaging, I want to say, 6 points in the paint per game. That's the same as Kelsey Plum and Alicia Gray, right? That's like around what Natasha Cloud and Skylar Diggins are providing for their respective teams. And none of this, frankly, is that surprising. Like, I think we're all, Sabreena and I talked to GMs, and you can read our GM scout from April. Like, it was hard to find negative, criticism about her as a prospect. Like, she was almost unanimously loved across the board and thought of as this impact player. And we're just seeing it right away. And considering how good she has been, and also that Washington got the pick in a trade, like, there's a lot of Sonia Citron love. I mean, Kiki's been really good too. Again, like, almost 9 points in the paint per game. That's more than Jonquel Jones, Angel Reese, and Ezzy Magbagor. Like, she's posting up less, but she's still being really efficient and really effective. Like, she's been really good too. And Washington, again, if you had the Washington Mystics 3-3 and the Indiana Fever 2-3 on May 29th, congratulations. And I think we need to take more betting advice and just general advice from you.
Yeah, no, it definitely is one of the biggest surprises. I think that Sonia Citron is someone that was under the radar because she played against or alongside 2 stars in Olivia and Hannah, like, at Notre Dame. And it was natural for everyone to kind of see her as a role player, even though she was doing so much more than being a role player in Notre Dame. So, shout out to Sonia for showing up and doing the dirty work. But I got to talk, because there's more than just them. And like we said, Sonia, Kiki, Paige is not far off behind them. But there's some other names that have been making a case for themselves around the association. I get to see some of them, 2 of them, in the Bay, and Carla Late and Janelle Salon. And when I look at the two of them coming out of France, making everyone remind themselves of, oh, this is why France, or part of why the France program has just been building in terms of their impact on the global scale. I mean, yes, we all knew that Maureen Johannes was phenomenal with her one-legged trick shots, but there's more behind her with Dominique Malonga, Carla Late, Janelle Salon. I wanted to ask you guys, I see them up close. Janelle Salon becoming someone that could literally become another power forward, big name power forward in this league. Carla Late, a very firecracker, explosive type of guard, giving early days Kelsey Plum. I guess now the Kelsey Plum we're seeing in LA as well. What are your thoughts on the Valkyries rookies and the way that they've come in and made a splash in the W? Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I've spent the last, again, like 5 days, I guess, with the Valkyries here in New York. They're on an extended road trip here in New York. And we're taping this, we should say, again, before they play their second of 2 games against the Liberty at Barclays Center. Like, we talked about going into the year that the Valkyries wanted to find, or should have wanted to found, like, who is going to be foundational pieces of the first great Valkyries team. And to me, it is already clear, maybe it's a little early, but I think it's already clear that, like, they have 2 players in Janelle Salon and Carla Late who, like, should be part of that team.
Absolutely.
And I don't necessarily think they are surprised by the impact that both of those players are making. If you listen to this podcast, you know that we have been talking about Janelle Salon for a very long time. I think she was part of our most intriguing player list. I have mentioned her in other shows. A little early to take a full victory lap, but, like, look, she looks like the kind of player that you can run an offense around, and we have seen that right away from how the Valkyries just, like, threw her into the fire here. Like, she's averaging almost 12 shots per game. She's taken, the first shot of games in 2 of her first 3 games. She has a very green light. Like, Natalie Nakase was saying that after their loss to New York on Tuesday night, at one point early in the game when Janelle kind of got off to a slow start, like, Janelle looked at her and now it was like, keep shooting. Like, I'm going to keep you in the game. Like, I'm not taking you out. I mean, like, she's going to shoot a lot of threes, but she's 6'2", 6'3". Like, she is a rangy, versatile defender. Like, her ceiling is very, very high. And I think that is very clear right now. In Carla Late, again, a rookie, Sabreena described her perfectly, I think, in her power rankings. Maybe Sabreena can share a little bit of what she wrote. But, like, against the Sparks, 19 points in 23 minutes, going up against Kelsey Plum, who she told me was, like, her favorite player growing up in France. The way she snakes around screens, like, she's super active defensively. They have a plus 18 net rating with Carla Late on the floor to the Golden State Valkyries. That's pretty telling for a rookie and for a team that is struggling to score the basketball. Like, she's been a real energizer in it. So, yeah, there is a lot to like in those 2 players out in the Bay.
Absolutely. Sabreena, what are your thoughts on Carla?
Yeah, so I was at the Sparks Valkyries game in LA, so the second one, the one that Golden State won, and when I was making my little rookie letter here, I had to pump the brakes on Janelle and Carla because that was by far their best game of the season. And I was like, oh yeah, there's other things that have happened that I need to account for. Just during that game, Carla Late, like, imploring the LA crowd to cheer for her was just one of my very favorite things. She is just so freaking ready to celebrate anything that happens on the court. Ben alluded to this, like, she very much reminds me of Georgia Amore in demeanor, just like the way she has just this joy on her face all the time. The 3-point volume, like the way her ponytail bobs up and down the court, like, it is very Georgia Amore to me. Just French Georgia, and a little bit younger. But
yes,
I think
that's actually really, I like
Carla
that. And guess who Georgia Amore reminds me of? Kelsey Plum. Yeah.
Dogs one after the other. But yeah, I think, with Salon, like, we mentioned, shots not going in for other players. Like, Janelle Salon's 2-pointers have been, like, a real adventure. I gotta say, like, when she gets inside the arc, I don't really know what's gonna happen. There is a green light, absolutely, but something needs to be tempered here. This is not the time, because we just want to see what she can do at this point. But I look at the shooting numbers, and, like, if I'm gonna give Paige grief for shooting 30% on 3-pointers, like, Janelle Salon's 23.5% on 2-pointers deserves a mention, but I love just the physical tools. She obviously is extremely confident, gets those shots up. The 3-pointer looks good. And, you think about like Golden State theoretically striking out in free agency, by not getting any of the big names like a Kelsey Plum, like a Satu Sabli, all these players that change teams. I think they have a pretty good foundational piece in Salon, who is young enough, to grow with the rest of this team. I'm just shocked that like she was ever in the WNBA draft and was not picked like as a second or third round pick. Like what are WNBA teams doing if not like recognizing the potential for this talent?
I'm really happy you said the word confident, because I really think that is one, the definition of what makes a good rookie. You got to go out there, you got to play confident, you got to be strong with the ball. You got to be willing to take the shots. You got to be fearless when you go out on the floor. And that's one thing you can absolutely see in those Valkyries rookies. But there's one more rookie, Sabreena, that you are curious about, or maybe not curious about, you're high on. I'm more curious about, and I want to ask you about, and that is a rookie out in Phoenix. Tell me a little bit about Mo Makani.
Yeah, so to be clear, we like came into this podcast and like did our own little rookie ladders. I did not have Carla Late or Janelle Salon as my 4 or 5. I had 2 Phoenix rookies, not just Monique Akol-Makani at number 4, but Catherine Westbelt too at number 5, another Notre Dame player who has been out of the domestic play for a very long time. She was on the 2018 championship team at Notre Dame, has played in Europe since, and is a rookie in Phoenix this season at the ripe old age of 29. Love to see it, but. I think the Phoenix rookies in general, like they just had this game earlier this week where 4 of them hit 3 3-pointers. That's a WNBA record that's never happened before, because frankly, when are 4 rookies ever getting that much playing time for any team, especially one that's trying to win? So just to start with Westbeld, like I've really enjoyed just a player who knows how to defend and hit threes. Like, get me as many of those as you possibly can. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
But, American fans kind of know her, right? Like she did play at Notre Dame. Mo is like this revelation to me. She's never played in America. She's, Cameroonian descent, played in France. Admittedly, I was very low on Phoenix during the offseason because I just didn't know the players that they had signed. They were, no American experience. And you see her come in and she is just this feisty point guard. She got right up into Kelsey Plum's face so many times while the Sparks were playing the Mercury. Just a really aggressive physical defender, which you love at the point of attack. She's shooting the crap out of the ball. I don't think she's missed a free throw all season, and she's shooting 52% on threes. Phoenix's net rating with her on the court is just like bonkers. They're on off when Mo's on the court. They're plus 20.5 when she plays net rating wise. Like, so that's second best on the team, only behind Satu Sabali.
Wow.
Like, she's just absolutely crushing it. I mean, she's incredibly athletic, shoots the ball well, is super composed, 25-year-old WNBA rookie. And I think it's just really cool that, the Mercury did something a little different this offseason, brought in a bunch of players that the casual American fan was not familiar with. I attest to being one of those. And they filled out their roster really nicely. And I've thoroughly enjoyed watching, Westbeld, Laxa, Lex Held, and especially, Monique Akol-Makani play this season.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when we came into this, Ben, we were like, name 5 other players in Phoenix other than Satu Sabli and Alyssa Thomas and Ka Copper, who obviously isn't playing. But they've been showing out. I mean, they have definitely been making some names for themselves in terms of Makani and, of course, Lexi Held. But what have been your thoughts about some of the other rookies, including Phoenix's rookies around the league? Anyone else stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, one, it's just a good reminder, like the last couple players we've mentioned, like you can have an impact whether you went to an American college or not, and whether you were drafted right away or not. And it is a reminder to people, like when they look at training camp cuts and decisions that teams make, like sometimes it is important to not, you don't have to do it all the time, but like sometimes it's important to at least give the team a little bit of a benefit of a doubt here about the decisions they make. And it's been interesting, like Phoenix, they didn't have any draft picks, so there was no debate whether they should have kept a straight out of college rookie, for instance, or a player like Makani or Westbeld. Whereas like with Golden State, there was definitely a conversation about that roster construction, and some of it is fair, some of it is not. But like, it's just a good reminder going forward. If we're going to put a button on the rookie conversation, I mean, 2 other players I'll just quickly mention. Tahina Paopao has been, I think, pretty impactful for the Atlanta Dream. She started their first 4 games before she went out with a facial injury. She stepped in and looked very comfortable. Shooting, playmaking, ball handling, just like being a presence on the floor, and fitting in really nicely, especially for a second round pick. So, we'll see it throughout the season it progresses, but I think she's due for a pretty good year in her debut season with Atlanta. And then Dominique Malonga, we should just mention because we spent a lot of time talking about her in the preseason. I think there have been, some moments that have been pretty high, and we have seen the athleticism on full display. I think one of the big differences between her and some of the other rookies we have mentioned so far is just opportunity, right?
Playing time, right?
Right, exactly. She hasn't played more than 12 minutes per game. And in the game that she played the most minutes, it was against the Las Vegas Aces when they, beat the Aces by 20, and that scoreline doesn't even reflect just how much of a blowout that game was. Like, we have seen her be really athletic. We've seen her rebound the basketball. She gets up and down clearly. She also leaves her feet a lot on the defensive end, and I think she's still trying to figure out, like, WNBA defensive rotations. All the physical tools that people were so high on heading into the draft, they're very much present. I think it's just going to be a matter of how does she get opportunity, and in what moments does Noelle Quinn give her opportunity on a team that Seattle's look pretty good. They have a front court of Ezi Magbegor and Nneka Ogwumike, who are both all-star caliber players. Leah Rue is also a WNBA quality center as well. So there's just a lot of options. And so we just haven't seen just the same opportunity, the same amount of minutes as we have seen with some of the other players. But I think she's shown what people thought she was going to show, I guess, earlier in this year too.
Yeah, it's funny that we're closing the same way we started when it comes to the number 1 pick and the number 2 pick. It's context, right? You got to look at the context within which they're playing to be able to evaluate them. But the good news is that I really don't think that there's been a drop off in terms of the entertainment value that the rookies have provided the WNBA this season. And it's really cool that it's been spread out. Right. Of course, Chicago, Indiana got a lot of love last year. Now we're seeing it in Washington. We're seeing it in Dallas, seeing a little bit in Phoenix as well. So it's awesome that all these teams are taking advantage of all the talent that is pouring in to the W. All righty, y'all. Before we go, it is officially Friday, and that means we got a weekend of games coming up. We have to set our screens. So it's time to set your screen, presented by BetMGM. Get in on the excitement with BetMGM with an any sport, no sweat token. If you don't win your wager, you'll get a stake back in bonus bets. So put that money down, folks. There's no sweat on it. All right. I'm not sure what that really means for me because I'm in California and I don't bet, but y'all can. So, Sabreena, where are you setting your screen this weekend?
Yeah, so the Commissioner's Cup starts this weekend, which is absolutely my favorite time of the year. 5 games on Sunday. As a reminder, the Eastern Conference, the one time of the year that the conferences matter, each East team will play 5 Commissioner's Cup games. Each West team will play 6 Commissioner's Cup games, so the fun lasts just a little bit longer. But yeah, all those games.
Okay, love that. Ben, any Commissioner Cup games on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I am not a big fan of the Commissioner's Cup. I'm not a big fan of the NBA's in-season tournament either. Can you tell me who won that? But of the Commissioner's Cup slate that is kicking off on Sunday, Aces at Storm, which, I think we actually said this game last week, and it is true in both situations because the Aces, for the second straight weekend, are going to play at the Seattle Storm. The first time it was all about the Jewel Lloyd reunion, coming back to Seattle for the first time. To me, the big question now is, can the Aces rebound from their 20-point loss just a week ago against the exact same team? And how do they look different? Or are we going to see the exact same result? That is a big question that is looming with this game. And I think a lot of people have some questions about how the Las Vegas Aces look right now. So an interesting test as they look to rebound from a recent loss at the to the Seattle Storm again.
As Asia said, we just played like S. They did not play very well. It was very direct. We'll see what happens when they clean things up. I will be setting my screen to the Sky versus the Wings. Paige Becker's 5, Angel Reese 5. They will have matched up already on Thursday night, and this will be a rematch over the course of the weekend, but very excited to see those two link up on the basketball court. Okay. That is it for today. Coming up on Tuesday, we've got former WNBA champion and all-star Candace Parker and her baby hairs joining the show. Very excited to hear Candace's take on the W and hear about her new book, The Can Do Mindset, which is set to be released in June. And if you haven't yet, as I mentioned at the top of the show, hit that follow button wherever you're listening so you never miss a pod. Also, come check us out on YouTube. Let us know what you think about the podcast in the comments. We read them. So make sure your grammar is correct and give us a rating because it helps new people find the show. As always, more to read and watch over our partner, the Yahoo Sports Hub. Not sports club, but it could be a sports club, but we be having fun in there, okay? So check it out at sports.yahoo.com/women-sports. That slash is actually a /, folks. So sports.yahoo.com/women-sports. On behalf of The Athletic and this incredibly long outro, I am Zena Cada. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to No Off Season. To hear more, be sure to like and subscribe. We drop new episodes every Tuesday and Friday.